The story of Ong Tu's sword. That year, there was a tyrant in a distant sea who suddenly led his army to attack the mountains and forests of the Bana people. Wherever their troops went, the green forests immediately became white space, the fields became gravel fields, and the villages became flat land. They competed in killing and coercing the villagers, capturing all buffaloes, cows, pigs, and chickens. Robbed all the rice, corn, gongs and jars, gulped down delicious wine and sweet honey, and burned down the entire house. People are angry. The mountains and forests were also burning with anger. People from all over the Tri-Ring, residential area consisting of many villages, and hundreds of forests and mountains all stood up with one heart and held up shields and knives to fight the enemy. But the enemy army is large, the enemy is strong, and the people cannot resist. The village is writhing in pain. During that time, in a small village deep in the forest, there was a woman named Hobia Dat. One day, Mrs. Dat was so tired from working in the fields that she hid under a tree to rest. The noon sun was like fire. She was so thirsty and wanted to find water to drink. Suddenly seeing a puddle of clear water behind a tree, next to a rock crevice, she quickly ran over and bent down to take a drink. Cool water penetrates into the intestines and liver. But as soon as she finished drinking and stood up, she was surprised because her stomach felt heavy and kept getting bigger. Then just 3 months later, she went into labor and gave birth to a son. The baby ate very well and grew rapidly, soon becoming a young man with extraordinary health. Seeing his homeland being destroyed by enemies, his hatred was boundless. He then asked his mother to leave the village and travel around, looking for talented people to kill the enemy. But he kept walking and walking, passing through many villages and mountains, but he still did not meet anyone with the ability to chase away the enemy. The more he traveled, the more he saw scenes of people's pain and mourning, the more eager he became to meet talented people with whom he could kill the enemy. Frustrated and resentful but not knowing what to do, the young man stomped his feet on the ground, raised his face to the sky and lamented, "Oh God, why don't you help me wash away this hatred?" As soon as he finished speaking, strangely enough, the clear sky suddenly darkened, dark clouds filled in, and a storm arose. And there was an earth-shattering explosion, causing the mountains and hills to stagger, the forest to tilt, the ground to collapse, and the boy fell into a deep hole of hot water, steam rising. Struggling in the water, he tried his best to get up. When he dipped his head to swim, he suddenly saw a long, black object submerged in the water. Surprised, he dived completely, used his teeth to grip the object and swam straight to shore. And he realized that object was a precious steel bar. From the moment the steel bar was brought ashore, the lake water suddenly cooled, the fog disappeared and the sky were bright as usual. He happily looked at the steaming steel bar and silently thanked the gods for giving him a treasure. He carried the steel bar and ran straight to a blacksmith's house nearby. He asked the blacksmith to immediately forge a sword for him to fight the enemy. Hearing that, the blacksmith hurriedly did it. He put the steel bar into the furnace and heated it all day, from morning to night. Burning all the coal, but the steel bar still remained inert and not red. The young man and the traders had to burn an entire old forest, burn the trees into charcoal, and bring it back to the blacksmith to heat the steel. On Saturday night, when the giant block of coal was almost completely burned, the steel bar turned red and suddenly turned red like the sun. And under the skilled hammer of the blacksmith, the red steel bar suddenly became a sharp and shining blade. The most skillful carpenters in the area also came and split up to find wood to make sword hilts and sheaths. When they were done, they raised the sword and gave it to the young man, the son of Hobi-Adat. He received the sword and immediately took it out of its sheath. A bright ray of light shot out. Everyone moved away, covering their eyes with their hands to avoid glare. The flower sword rises, radiating a halo of light that dims the sunlight. The sun was also blinding and immediately pulled the clouds to cover my face. The ground darkened, stormy winds arose, and thunder roared loudly. The young man of Hobi-Adat swung his sword and charged straight at the enemy. In the stormy wind, people from all over also rushed forward with shields, swords, bows, and crossbows. Thunder also followed the magic sword, roaring continuously to strike down the enemy. Wherever the young man's sword swung, the enemy army would scatter. In just one night, the brutal army and the tyrant were all killed by the magic sword. After defeating the enemy, the villagers cheered and came back to rebuild their communal houses and repair the village and fields. Soon, business was prosperous in all areas and the brave man, the son of Hobi-Adat, had become an old man with a beard and hair as white as cotton. The villagers were grateful and respected the old man very much, considering him a bright star in the sky. Therefore, people called him Mr. Two and called the sword that destroyed tyrants the sword of Mr. Two. One day, Mr. Two was seriously ill. The traders tried their best to treat him, but he could not recover. Knowing he was about to die, Mr. Two immediately took out the magic sword and dropped it into the lake caused by the landslide that year, to return it to the gods. The water waves received the sword and boiled. The lake surface was filled with smoke again. Later generations passed down that, in that lake, the Kin people found the sword sheath, the Khmer people found the sword hilt, and the Bana people themselves found the sword blade. It is also said that, if the magic sword is fully assembled, its power will be unmatched. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.